Megalopolis, or as I like to call it, ADHD and Ecstasy, the movie. Why? Well, because you would need ADHD and ecstasy in order to stay awake, let alone understand what the is even going on in this movie. The plot, if you can even really call it that, centers on Cesar, played by Adam Driver, this head of housing development, I guess, in this half-modern, half-Roman Empire version of New York, who's recently begun a permit to build a futuristic utopia called Megalopolis. What's his motivation for building it? Why does it matter to him so much? Why is it necessary? What makes it better, more sustainable for everyone than the new Rome they already have? Fucked if I know, because even though the rich and poor ironically hate this project for different reasons, we don't even get a real glimpse of what it looks like until about halfway through the movie, or at least I think it was halfway through, because this movie is so fucking slow and long and boring that I did in the theater what I shouldn't do, what I always hate when people do. I pulled out my phone, turned it on, like I didn't flash it in anyone's faces. I had it like tucked away in my knee just to check the time. Counting the trailers, it was only an hour and 20, and it felt like fucking 3. Anyways, the evil Mayor Cicero is publicly at war with Caesar over the idea because, no joke, he's just afraid of change. He's openly distrustful of people who push for utopias because they always lead to dystopias, which could be complex drama if there were any scenes devoted to their differing philosophies on tradition versus innovation. They try doing that one scene, but it's mostly pseudo-philosophical speeches filled with such pretentious dialogue, I don't think even the actors understood what they were saying, because all the characters in this script go back and forth from speaking in normal sentences to waxing poetic and Shakespearean style speeches to make it sound complex when in reality they're discussing nothing. But back on track, instead of having an open debate with Caesar, Cicero frames this guy for multiple crimes that he didn't commit in order to paint Caesar as the villain that he sees him as, which whatever. Moving on to the next plot. Meanwhile, Nathalie Emmanuel is Cicero's daughter who spends most of her nights partying, snorting coke off of ladies, Frenching the ladies afterwards, and then all of a sudden she becomes fascinated with Caesar because she sees something that no one else can't. She sees that Caesar has the power to stop time with the snap of a finger or at the will of his command. That's right, with the snap of a finger, the movie can turn into click at any time they want. Problem is, he doesn't use his power in any way that actually serves the plot. We never see him spend 8 hours working on a design when in reality it's only been a few seconds. He doesn't evade law enforcement by stopping time the couple times he actually needs to. Hell, he doesn't even fool around in a click-style way to experiment with his powers. Well, okay, he does, but I can't explain why because I'm pretty sure YouTube wouldn't let me describe the situation. Hell, at one point he actually loses his powers for no real reason other than it's necessary for the plot in order for him to be at his lowest point. And then all of a sudden he randomly gets his powers back because he was happy to see her, I guess. I really wish I was making this shit up. More people ought to try this. But yeah, the freezing time superpower is really just a cheap metaphor for artistic vision, and not that you can't use metaphors in a movie like that well, but they kind of need to have context in the story you're telling, especially if you're going to take yourself as seriously as this movie does. Then again, one of the other stories in this movie is that Shia LaBeouf is Caesar's cousin who becomes a political revolutionary to wage an all-out war against Caesar because Nathalie Emmanuel loves Caesar instead of him, and she's the only girl in his life that he has any feelings for. Except for when he has some Sharpay and Ryan moments, if you know what I mean. I can't even curse because it just reminds me of how disgusting that is. The fuck was I? Oh, right. Aubrey Plaza is also this celebrity reporter named Wow Platinum. And she also wages an all-out war with Caesar because she was once his mistress, but he didn't actually love her, and she marries his uncle, who is the CEO of a national bank, somebody who could actually help Caesar whenever he's in a crisis, but really does fuck all. She marries him for his vast wealth, which should be more than enough for her, but it apparently isn't. Has any of this made sense to you, audience? No, seriously, I'm asking you guys, because despite the rumors, and maybe this did happen in a couple theaters, but we did not get an interactive scene where Adam Driver stops the movie to ask us a question, because if it did, I probably would shout at the screen, "Can I have my fucking money back like that one couple that left a third of the way through?" At least I think it was a third of the way through, because time, ironically, makes no sense watching this damn movie, let alone in the context of the story. How the hell does a movie with this many talented people in front of and behind the camera make something so long and boring and hollow and surprisingly really convoluted? Because to Francis Ford Coppola's credit, debating whether or not to rebuild society or maintain it as it is, how to balance past tradition with futuristic innovation, the possibility of stopping time and the ethics behind it, these are all fascinating concepts that have been done well before, but you could still explore it in greater detail. Every era Coppola tried to get this movie off the ground, he had a talented ensemble cast that could have pulled this off. And to the credit of all the crew members who actually stuck around on this production, the cinematography, set design, and costumes do actually create some gorgeous shots that are unlike anything that you've seen in any other movie within the past 5 years. And I mean, that's the reason I wanted to give this movie a chance in the first place. As douchey as Coppola's comments are about the nature of Hollywood, in the end, he is right that movies are more safe and manufactured these days compared to the new Hollywood era that made him famous, where there was more artistic freedom and labor of love that, for the most part, went into making great movies that have an everlasting impact because the directors were allowed to create their own vision. And I say for the most part because Coppola makes the exact same mistakes that he did in Apocalypse Now in a different context, but are the reason that we don't get new Hollywood movies anymore. He went way over budget, he fought with his cast and crew, lost quite a bit of his cast and crew, and was constantly rewriting and editing shit. And if you've been following any of the controversies surrounding this movie, you know that one of them was, despite having a completed script for decades, Coppola decided to be so experimental that entire scenes were scrapped, rewritten, or improvised, which would explain why this is as narratively cohesive as a fucking Whose Line skit. And don't get me wrong, I love Whose Line, but Whose Line doesn't use its humor to create story and characters, it's really just the other way around. But even then, the Whose Line cast have rules and limitations within the games on what they're allowed to do. The unlimited amount of freedom to improvise in Megalopolis ironically gives the impression there are entire scenes missing that take away context on what the scene's even about. Or worse, make you forget half the characters even exist. Because you have great actors like Jon Voight, Dustin Hoffman, Laurence Fishburne, Kathryn Hunter. Some weird choices like Grace VanderWaal, Balthazar Getty. The fact that a Getty is in a movie about greed and corruption, it doesn't get any more ironic than that. And to be honest, you can cut almost every one of these characters out of the movie without missing a thing. Jason Schwartzman is clearly in this as a favor for his uncle because he's a glorified extra with maybe 5 lines tops. Talia Shire has 2 scenes as this Livia Soprano type mother, and honestly, her scenes were so drawn out and random that I actually started laughing as a defense mechanism just to make myself feel better at how boring and pointless this all was. Hell, what feels like a half hour goes by where I forgot that Giancarlo Esposito was even in the damn movie. I mean, how do you accomplish that? Sweet and sour at the same time. Again, can't recommend that enough. Remind me again, how do you make me forget that Gus is even in the movie? Oh, that's right. I remember, you crowd this movie with way too many visuals that honestly don't even tell the story. They serve as window dressing. They give you the impression that there's this constant effort to make world building of this new Rome era that could be really interesting, where the characters have modern sets and costumes, but there are sprinklings of Roman decor into the designs of their clothes, or they do wear toga-like outfits half the time. But to be honest, things like the chariot race, the Roman wrestling, Grace VanderWaal as this holographic singer with an invisible dress, all that stuff is window dressing that tells you absolutely nothing about this world. It is all show and nothing more. And the editing in this is so rapid and disorienting that half the time shots cut away from one another with no transition, which is obviously the point. There are several scenes where you're supposed to get this drug-induced hypnotic feel towards it, and I'd be lying if I said there weren't a couple scenes that I enjoyed because of that. But when you cut away from shot to shot to shot for no reason other than it's artistic, the very little story I could follow, I completely lost track because Coppola shows off way too many fucking times. I haven't even really written notes on the acting or the characterization on this movie because there's honestly nothing to talk about other than Okay, maybe there are one or two things to talk about. So, because I mentioned before, isn't even worth going on about. Every actor does the exact same style of performance where it feels more like stage acting, the way they go back and forth from regular dialogue to Shakespearean style speeches that I know is supposed to fit the new Roman type of setting, I guess, but because that setting is so barely explored, it feels out of place. And even though nobody's really giving a bad performance, except Shia LaBeouf and Aubrey Plaza, I have absolutely no idea what they were thinking. LaBeouf goes out of his way to be so over the top that whatever shit he's in the tabloids for looks absolutely normal in comparison. I can't tell whether that's better or worse for his career. Him being a political revolutionary doesn't even make sense. He sees people protesting Megalopolis, and because he hates his cousin that much, he starts coming up with his own slogans against Megalopolis, and all of a sudden everybody just follows him. Like, he doesn't offer a solution, which, again, is probably the point to satirize politicians and shit, but, like, he still needs to be a valid leader or a valid-looking leader in order for people to follow him in the first place.
Some people dream of success, while you're gonna wake up and work hard at it!
And to describe Aubrey Plaza's performance is like describing a Kate McKinnon performance. It doesn't match the tone of the rest of the movie. It is so cartoonish that you can't take it seriously, but because she's famous and because people like her for some reason, I never got the Aubrey Plaza thing or the Kate McKinnon thing to begin with, they just let her do it anyways. And all the characters are selfish pricks. I'd go on and on about why they're selfish pricks, because... Actually, yeah, why did I say because? Oh, fuck me, what have I gotten myself into? You know what, I've pointed out all the plot holes, the inconsistencies, the fact that there's really no world building. I haven't even gotten to the fact that Laurence Fishburne is the narrator of this for really no reason. I mean, he even narrates the title cards that are right in front of us as if we can't fucking read. And somehow that shit just makes the movie even more confusing about what it's even about. I thought The Watchers was as boring a movie as I was gonna see this year, and boy was I wrong. I mean, Megalopolis had a lot more going for it, and it had more potential, but the fact that it failed this miserably is what makes it worse. Watchers, it's from Shyamalan's daughter. Were we really surprised that she was gonna direct it in the exact same way as he does? No, of course not. Now it's a good thing Sophia didn't direct a movie this year, otherwise that... Actually, you know what? Fuck that. I like Sofia Coppola more than her own father's work. I haven't seen a movie this dull and boring since Number 7 Cherry Lane. In fact, this is up there with Number 7 Cherry Lane as one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. For a movie that has clearly good visuals and talented actors and a script that had some thoughts, some ideas going for it, it's completely put to waste in the worst possible way. Yeah, that's all I got. Guys, thanks as always for watching. I don't know why you did, but you did, so thank you. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Megalopolis. If you liked it, congrats. Feel free to explain why, just don't be an ass about it, please. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on Patreon, buy me a coffee. See you guys in the next review, whatever. Bye.